Hi, my name is Terry Lynch. I'm the CEO of Power Nickel. Power Nickel is developing the Nisk nickel sulfide project in Namaska, Quebec.
Terry, good to see you. Welcome to London. Unfortunately, we're not able to see each other today because you're also running around seeing investors across Europe as well. Right, it's been a sort of interesting year for mining juniors this year. How do you think you've fared?
Yeah, fair to middling. On the market side of things, I think we've hit the ball of the park operationally. And I guess if you had to choose, you'd rather hit the ball of the park operationally and be fair to middling in the market because you can never control the drill bit. So thanks God, that's been very good to us.
Right. Okay. And I noticed the announcement. Oh, you're going to raise some capital. Why now? Surely there are better times to raise money in the market.
Yeah, unfortunately, we've never really had the frothy market that as we've been developing. So we've always been a just-in-time sort of business. Now, luckily, we got 4 times the market price for our stock. So there is that. So it was a.
Sorry, explain that, Terry.
So our market price was 22.5. We raised it at 90. So super non-dilutive to our shareholders. And people say, well, how the hell did you do that? And there's really sort of 2 reasons. One, it was a current business relationship with a company called CV Morrow who's doing our feasibility study, and so they're obviously deep in the weeds. They know the project quite well. They're a big industry investor, 18 plants around the world, so they know what's coming out with our 43-101, or they've already done that math. And I said, look, we're simply not going to dilute down here. Otherwise, we're just waiting, because the news is coming. And so that was one element of it. The second element was, of course, the Quebec 2-for-1. So really the 90 cents really is a reflective of a 45-cent price. So 45 was about double what we had. We were at 22.5 when we did the deal. So it wasn't as painful as most financings are today for most mining companies. So in that case, it was pretty reasonable. And we needed to push the product forward so that we can have our feasibility study completed by the end of Q1 or early Q2.
So the Quebec 2-for-1, explain that. Why do you guys get a free pass?
You know what? I mean, basically, if you have a critical mineral mine in Quebec, you can use the several Quebec-based financial institutions, and they will, package the tax incentives to the Quebecers, and they'll invest at, say, X, and the same day you bring in a buyback investor that buys it back for half X. And that's the Quebec 2-for-1. And I've done it 4 times.
Okay. And then, right, so let's talk about the kind of use of proceeds, because obviously you've done a fair bit of drilling. What do you now need to do? Because I think we're going to talk about, hopefully, about the 43-01 coming out shortly. Yep. What do you need to do with that money?
Yeah, so we'll continue to drill, of course. We'll be drilling up until mid-December, and then we'll start again in maybe the first week in January. Because we're continuing to add tons with Nisk main, but we've identified using the fleet ambient noise tomography in conjunction with our other tools, we've identified 4 other similar pods we feel to Nisk main. So our guidance to the market has been that we'll produce a 43-101 next week, somewhere in the 8 to 10 million ton range. So that's for the one pod. We think that pod will ultimately grow to somewhere between 10 to 12 million tons, maybe more. So that's, we're continuing to drill that, and that will be continuing to go on. And then we'll look to get into the, attack the other pods, which have a very particular signature that we've identified through this ambient noise tomography. So, this is a bit more of a refined approach on the exploration side. So we're excited to pursue that. Looking forward to an exciting, start to the year.
Right. So obviously what you've been showing up certainly in the press releases is that the grades are there. So it's not just nickel, it's copper. It's, that you got all the byproduct. In fact, some of them could be the lead product. One could argue. So, what you now need to do, what you now need to demonstrate to the market, and what I think is the scale. How are you going to do that if you're having to raise money in drips and drabs? I mean, it's tough out there. It's tough to get noticed out there. You've often told me you've got the best nickel project going. How do you convert that into stock buying?
I think people were waiting for the first 43-101. So this is a milestone thing for us. Puts us on the map. We haven't had a legitimate one. We had a historic one, as you know, and for several funds, they can't invest until you actually have a 43-101. So I think our stock price has been penalized in that box, those covers come off. So, we'll be able to now, I think, talk to all the potential funds that, couldn't really look at us. And I think that will have a transformative effect on the stock, which will obviously increase the market capitalization, allow us to tie into bigger funds. We've been able to, move forward productively from a dilution perspective because of the Quebec incentive packages. And that's the only thing that's been good. Thanks God we were able to do that. But I expect in the future we'll be able to do a more robust financing at a much higher price using the same packages, but a large number.
Right, but you're still sort of down at that level where it's going to be mostly retail. Looking at this, you're talking about institutional.
I think the next time around, no. I think what'll happen. I mean, look at this round. CVMR had put up 2.75 million, or basically that's the number. And we just did a $2 million round with Rob McEwen and my family. So significant players are coming in now. And I think now with the 43-101, we'll move forward. I've advanced in due diligence with 2 or 3 of the biggest battery metal funds in the world. And they're all waiting on the 43-101. So I think there is going to be a changing tide for us. And, we'll wait to see what happens in that respect. Frankly speaking, Matt, if the market doesn't wake up, we'll end up selling this thing sooner to industry for, many times more than where we're at right now. Because at some point you got to stop stealing from yourself, and that's what happens if you dilute. If you have to dilute down here at 25 cents or something like that, you're just killing yourself.
Well, I mean, it's not the first time I've heard that from in this sector. People in a market like this, people talk a lot about going private. Quite frankly, because at least you get credit for what you're doing. Come back to that question scale for me, though, Terry, because you've done drilling, you're going to be doing drilling. How much more drilling before you kind of get to scale with this type of ore body? Because the 43-101 is one thing, but we've got to put better and better economics on something like it's going to we need to work out how you make money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So basically, I would say the thing becomes economic with this 43-101. You're going to have probably 100,000 contained tons of nickel, and we're going to have a full feasibility out from CVMR saying, hey, if we built this plant, here would make this much money, would have this much investment and this much returns, and those returns are, by the way, they're going to be ridiculous. Like I'm talking north of 50 IRR is my expectation. So this is going to be an amazingly profitable spot to do business, and not a crazy sum of money. I expect we could build a phenomenal plant there for 300 million in that range, and half of it we're going to get from the government, okay, because of the tax credits and stuff. And then you've got the U.S. Department of Defense that is keen to support nickel initiatives in North America, Class 1 nickel. So trust me, this is going to be a really phenomenal economic project. And we had to get this 43-101 out. And that's why, if the market doesn't wake up, we'll end up doing it privately because it can be financed. And it'll be a shame because, we'll have to, sell it for, just a few $100 million when, if we could develop it, I think we could take it to a couple billion. But, we can only do what we can do. So we'll have to see.
Right. Okay. And so if I just kind of, just while sticking on the project proper and then the investment thesis proper, you like you say, you have sort of said to me constantly, this is one of the best nickel projects going in Canada. Sell it to me.
The world, not Canada.
The world. Okay.
Think
Let's
big.
Go for it.
The message I had when I was at the last investment forum was, and it was in London, was that we were the single best nickel investment deal on the planet. And I made my case.
Give me your 3 or 5 reasons to believe. Go on.
Number one reason is we probably, in terms of the nickel in the ground per unit of market capital, we've, at high grade. Okay, I'm talking 1% nickel or better. I'm not talking about these, large volume projects, as their economics are vastly different. So in that respect, we've got the most. And if you compare ourselves to the other high grade nickel sulfide projects around the world, we're trading at between 5 to 20% of their value. And arguably, we're in the best jurisdiction. We're with the best infrastructure, the best, least amount of community risk, and the best fiscal incentives. And then on the exploration side, we've identified that right now we're going to be 8.5 to 10 million tons. With our 43-101, we think that'll go to 12 to 14. We think we have maybe 3 or 4 of these from surface to 500 meters to find. This is every nickel sulfide mine in the history of the world has always been multiple pod. We've just got one pod right now. Will that be the only pod? Highly unlikely. We're going to find others. So this will be probably plus 30 million ton deposit from 0 to 500 meters. And you know where most of the nickel is found in most of the nickel mines? 500 meters to 2 kilometers. That's what happens in Norilsk. That's what's happened in Voisey Bay. That's what happened in Raglan. So all that's extra bonus. Like, you're buying this thing for 10 cents on the dollar, and we got all this massive upside. And that's just on the exploration. And wait, it gets better, because we've got, our refined approach. We're going with CVMR in terms of building a plant. And, they basically, their approach will allow us to get maybe as much as an extra 20% out of our ore body, and to get 2.5 to 3 times revenue for our product. And that's not a fantasy. That's a reality. They've got 18 plants around the world. So when I say it's the best nickel investment on the planet, it's not even close.
Okay, there you go. That's the selling bit over with. Now I need you to help me with the sector more broadly.
Sure.
You have recently filed a complaint about illegal short selling. You've been on the show and explained it to me in the past, and there has been various bits of lobbying happen, but it's all been slightly ineffectual. Now you're going for the throat. Tell me why.
Yeah, there's been some recent legal cases in the States that have changed the market, changed the landscape. So a company called Harrington Global won a lawsuit against CIBC World Markets et al. And it took them several years and many millions of dollars, but they did win it. And what the takeaway of that case was that CIBC World Markets were saying, hey, we rent our pipe to whoever we rent our pipe to, and what they do is up to them. And if you've got an issue with them and how they're, naked short selling your market or spoofing your market and it's causing you damage, go and sue them. Don't sue us. We're just renting the pipe. Well, courts found that to be not a plausible answer. And they've said, no, sir, you're responsible for the actions of your client if they're being reckless. So in this case, if you should have known that they're doing illegal things like naked short selling or spoofing, that it's causing destruction to other market participants, that's on you. Well, banks have a much bigger wallet than offshore hedge funds who trade through a number of companies. So that's a landscape change. So if you're a compliance officer at a bank, you're now trembling in your boots, because now it's like, hey, little companies like Power Nickel are going to start to wake up, which we've done. We've got the same evidence that they use. We follow the same pathways. That was my friend that actually did that case. He told me, talk to these guys, use these techniques, get this information. That's what we did. That's what we got. And that's why we sort of rolled out. And we're going to start with the complaint. And if we have to, we'll take it to the...
Well, look, I can see why the compliance officer, will be trembling in their boots, because, they're liable. They're liable financially. And quite frankly, prison sentences are dished out too. So that's good news. Can you tell me, what sort of support have you got behind you? Are other people supporting what you're doing, but, transferring that into action rather than just, arm waving behind you?
Yeah, I think this time is really different. Yesterday we had the Save Canadian Mining podcast, where Eric Sprott was on it with us, talking, helping us, guiding and saying to the CEOs listening, you need to get active, you need to get engaged. And we had the leading sort of tool providers, the Wes Christian, the top litigator in the space, David Wenger and Tom Rank, the top sort of data collectors in the space, the evidence that you need just to move forward. So we had 1,200 people on the call, which is for a business call is huge, right? It was the biggest in 6 who hosted it. That's their largest call they've ever had. So, I spoke to probably 20 or 30 CEOs afterwards on roundtables. So I think there's a lot of interest, because the market is the folks are desperate. The stocks are as low as they possibly can be, and if you believe in your enterprise, you got to get out and defend it. And now, because of the rule changes, you can actually do something effective. I think it's going to be a TSN turning point, where people will sort of look, and that's what we talked yesterday about, a message of hope, not of whining. In that, look, it's so low that you can go now and communicate. And this is what you're going to see over the next coming days, is companies are going to start to communicate with their, much like Power Nickel did with its shareholders. Other companies are going to start to communicate, say, hey, here's the problem, and here's what we're doing about it. And now's not the time to go. Now's the time to buy, because we're gonna turn this around. That's what I believe is going to happen. So this is could be a catalytic moment for the sector.
Well, I wholeheartedly agree with that. Whining doesn't get you anywhere. Action does.
Ma'am.
So I know you filed a complaint, but how do you and the people that are working with you escalate this? Because the banks need to be put under some pressure. But they've got to feel that is going to result in heavy fines, if not now, in the future. Penalties, jail sentences, all that sort of stuff. Just very quickly, because I think the issue is, if they don't feel it's serious, if they feel it's like one company, not a bunch of companies, you're not going to get anywhere. So this escalation is really, really important. So how do you drive that?
Yeah, so multiple ways. So the first thing is you got to have the appropriate process. So the guys we work with have won 11 cases between $10 and $100 million. So these are the guys that would scare them. Okay, so that's step one. Step two is you follow that process of getting the evidence and starting the best practices. We're followed by sending them first, 14 letters out to compliance officers, asking them to clarify how they've got these negative trade imbalances. They haven't really responded properly on that. And now you move it up to the formal complaint. So now IROC, or CRO now it's called, and FINRA have to act. So that's the next step. And then the other things that we're doing a little differently now is we've reached out to industry partners, other CEOs, and saying, hey guys, you all need to get engaged. Eric Sprott, the biggest mining investor in the planet, is telling them, hey, wake up and get engaged, because we need the lots of power nickels, not just one. We need 50 of you or 100 of you to take this action, because as you say, it's the numbers that count, because that's what's going to concern them, because each company is going to start to communicate with its shareholder base and say, talk to your MP, talk to your MLA, and say, hey, what is government doing that is allowing this to destroy our industry? This is ridiculous. Get off and do your job.
Okay, which would be brilliant. And can you just help me out? I'm just trying to understand the difference between shorting, naked shorting, Canadian law, US law. Is it all the same?
No. So let me. What shorting is when you borrow a stock and you say, hey, I think Terry Lynch is an idiot and he's going to drive his company in the ground, and I'm going to sell this stock because I'm going to buy it back later. That's legitimate. That's okay. We got no problem with that. Okay. What's predatory short selling is when you sell a stock you don't own, never have intention of borrowing it, and you mark it as a long ticket. Okay. So that is deceiving the market. And if you do that and keep on, and people are wondering, where is the stock coming from? Why are people selling? And that what happens is it's predatory, because normal investors don't know what's going on, see this selling pressure and think that, hey, there must be something I don't know, and I sell my stock too. So that's why this TSXV is at the world's, at its lowest levels in history. It's because they've been driven off the cliff by these, characters. And so that's the short thing. The rules in the U.S. are much more clear that it's illegal. Canada, a little less clear. It's still, CRO has said it's illegal, but there's some, nuances around it. But generally speaking, it's illegal and has to be stopped.
Can it be ever eradicated? Do you think that the exchange, you think the IROCs, the SECs of this world care enough about a sector which is, relatively small compared to everything else out there?
The key thing there is look at what happened in South Korea. South Korea banned short selling completely as a country just in the last few weeks. Thailand's looking at banning it. So it's not just affecting mining stocks. That's we just happen to be miners, so we're worried about our sector. But it's happening in biotech. It's happening in industrials. Anything beneath $1 billion is getting shorted to oblivion. But basically, capitalism, the formation of capital in Canada, is almost at a stop. So if you want to have economy, and I would think any country would, that they're gonna make it a priority. But it's a bit of it's on the people, it's on us as citizens and as business leaders to get out there and say, hey, wake the hell up, government, start to do your job. And eventually, it's so bad, Matt. It's like Rick Rule says, the cure for low prices is low prices. It's sort of like that right now. We're so depressed that everyone's sort of like that Peter Finch moment in Network, where you open the window up and say, I'm damn angry, And I think everyone's there. And we're not going to take no for an answer. We're going to get militant. We're going to get loud. And as a result, we're going to get results.